if you do any drug long enough, I think eventually that drug becomes part of your identity. Really, coffee becomes part of people's identity. Wine becomes part of people's identity. Marijuana, cocaine, you name it. There's a culture behind every drug. And there is an Adderall culture too, but it's quiet and in the shadows. But it's there, and I think it's a very Adderall is an incredibly mind-altering substance. That's actually the focus of it, is altering the mind. You have a mind that doesn't focus, or the mind that zones, whatever, as determined by A, B, and C. This mind needs altering. So you give this mind-altering drug. On Adderall, eventually, I had an identity crisis because the Adderall had changed the way I work. It had made me had changed the way I thought, approached things. It had changed the general energy of my personality, where I was just an overflowing cup. I was boisterous, I was talkative, I was interesting, I was nonstop working. I wasn't exactly, I don't know if I was more creative, but any creative inspiration I had enough gas in the engine to follow through from idea through completion. So it gave me the feeling that I was more creative because more creative projects were being seen to completion. Nonetheless, this, I might create a really interesting piece of art, be it music, video, photo, drawing. I did all that stuff on Adderall. And it was really, when I look back at some of it, it was technically and detailed, aggressive technical approach, which, it's a combination of who you really are with the spirit of Adderall or amphetamines. When you take it, that's what you become. So it's not you're totally the identity of Adderall or totally yourself either. You're totally a mix of these two kinds of consciousnesses. Adderall has a consciousness. So when it's with you, it takes who you are and shapes it into something else. For me, it was sort of this overly colorful, overly detailed kind of approach to creation that also integrated a weird sense of the feeling of it. When you have a piece of art, you have the technicality, but you also have the feeling. And the feeling for this kind of art I would make on Adderall was always like a shriveled skeleton, or like there was a hinge of darkness and strangeness. And there was a lot of that when I looked through all the drawings or music or anything I from that time where I was on Adderall. It was kind of spooky, that's not a part of my being anymore. And not to say that's not just about growth as a person, but it seemed that it it made me have this sort of kind of hermit-like tinkerer. Sure, I might still have some of, but not so, it felt nefarious at times. Nonetheless, though, I'd look at these pieces of art off of Adderall and wonder if I could really take responsibility for that. Even in school, when I found that I performed well, sometimes I'm like, well, did I perform well or did the Adderall do it? It felt like I couldn't claim credit for the things I had done because those things were done on Adderall. And I struggled with this, and it was part of kind of why my resolve to never go back to Adderall is so deep set, because I feel like the work to develop my own identity, the work to develop my own approach to work, was put off for so long because Adderall had taken the driver's seat in terms of my motivation, my inspiration, and my decision to follow through on things was all navigated by Adderall. So it was just impossible for me to grow as a person. What I was doing was being sustained in a way, and I thought I was growing because I was obtaining lots of knowledge and doing lots of research, but I wasn't understanding things in a way that wasn't controlled by Adderall. My understanding of things was very, to me, robotic, systematic, tactful, and sort of aggressive. And a lot of that, like even what I was doing with spiritual work sometimes, it felt like I was trying to drive a Lamborghini on a footpath because I was just like, yeah, got it, when things really were going a different way. Really, it was slow kind of work that you do for your whole life. But kind of this mindset that you have when your brain is in a permanent state of reward center stimulation, you just end up thinking that everything is an accomplishment and you're doing it. And this is like what kept me from dating or at the time, or really holding a good job. It's like everything I approach like tick tock tick tock tick tock tick. And I know people who their jobs are on the line because their Adderall use, they can't stop. And I'm grateful I did stop when I stopped, because I was down a career path and it had to have a dead end. I was on a different career, and when I stopped doing Adderall, my performance waned. I was a video editor and I was in the middle of a big project and engagement with this client and all this stuff. I was doing everything. I was shooting, producing, directing, interviewing, editing, blah, 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 blah. And it was going well because I was taking Adderall, and as soon as I stopped taking Adderall, I lost my supply. I actually got a email from these people that said it didn't have any oomph, and they were right. So I lost my job, and then I had to recreate this identity because I had an identity crisis. I found that during the withdrawal of Adderall, to wrap this all up, that you don't have an identity crisis until your identity literally, access to what had been my identity was gone. I couldn't, who I was after taking Adderall, probably just around 2 years, but I couldn't get the person. I was normally this person. People call me, they're like, yeah, man, he's always high energy, he's always fun, he's always crazy, and all this stuff, and I couldn't access that part of myself. So it's almost like I lost touch with people. People didn't like me like they used to like me. I didn't like myself. It was like I was left with pieces of myself I had to put back together. So that's kind of the long, hard work of the Adderall withdrawal, is taking this, it's almost like Adderall comes in, does all this stuff, kind of makes a mess and just leaves. And then you're left to kind of put your identity back together. And it can be the most powerful thing a person does if they really, if they can get through it, and if they commit to taking the opportunity that is something that is painful and hard to rebuild themselves in a way that makes their life more sustainable, more better, happier, and more fulfilling. Even if at the time it feels like they're just struggling with a withdrawal, that you're doing that work and you're making your life better because you're no longer dependent on a substance for your identity. You provide all the substance for your identity. You provide who you are. You provide all that motivation, creation, idealization. You have to develop systems to focus. I use notebooks and everything else, and lists, and good sleep, good nutrition, regular exercise, whatever it takes for you to replace the boost Adderall gives you with something that isn't going to drain you and throw you in ups and downs and do God knows what in the long term. The jury's still out what happens when someone takes Adderall for decades, So we'll have to wait and see how those people develop into middle and old age. That all being said, I hope this video meets you well, and that if you're going through Adderall or thinking about withdrawing, my heart goes out to you. It's a really challenging battle, and I hope making these videos, if it helps one person deal with that, then I know I'm not wasting my time. Thank you.